Hello, Mr. Sunram Gijay basically discussing on the topic that is city creation. So one of the person told that basically it's very tough life basically to have the creation basically. So one of the person told that it's very tough to create one blood group also basically. Because when you create one blood group basically you have to create the entire army force basically. For example, a blood group basically is there na basically. That person basically which is going basically, do you know basically? He basically have 10 army group basically. Because that blood group is basically connected with 150 crore people basically. And 150 crore people basically are, assume that basically that blood group basically is from India land basically. So India land basically have 15, assume that basically 16 army force basically, 16 blood group army force, and that army force are basically spread it across the world basically. Why? Because 150 crore people are basically connected with the 150 crore people basically are connected with the world basically, and that basically across the, that's why basically the army union basically are there basically. That union is of blood group basically, because they have created for what basically, they have created for to secure that particular person basically. They are basically not created for the others basically. They are basically not created for the prime minister basically. They have not created for the president basically. They have not created for the chief minister basically. They have created especially for that blood group basically owner. So if basically prime minister also basically comes in front of the particular blood group person basically, they have to give the answer to the prime minister also basically, because they have created for that particular secure that particular blood group basically. So for example, when that blood group basically owner basically have some fight with the prime minister basically, then basically they have to not to support prime minister basically, they have to support the blood group owner basically. And blood group owner basically have many army group basically. So that is the rule basically. That is basically the army group basically. So one of the person told that basically is the creation basically. So one of the person told that process basically, worth process basically, this is the process basically. Here basically the main thing is this two basically. Future creation basically gets connect to lots of expense basically. Connects to lots of expense basically. Connects to lots of expense basically. So if it is connecting to the expense, that means basically it is connecting to the government expense also basically. So in future basically that person basically is not getting married and not getting the after getting married also basically is not getting the marriage and not getting the child basically. And due to reason basically when he found basically that was basically the nasbandi was done basically of that particular person basically by the first family group basically. So that was also the future creation basically created. Here basically I had taken the example of one Mumbai city basically, that is the Maharashtrian city basically, the Marathi group city basically, which is connected with the India economic basically. That is basically the 22 lakh crore basically money basically, which is in the Bombay Stock Exchange. So you can just imagine basically it's not so easy to create the city also basically. So for example, assume that basically this type of incidents basically that person basically is not getting marriage, and when basically he tracked that basically when he basically checked his blood group basically, that time basically he got that basically he was HIV AIDS, and basically he checked more detail basically, then basically he got the information that basically he basically got Nasbanded disease also basically. Nasbanded disease means his generation also basically was sent basically by the Mumbai city basically. Here basically this is real story. Basically if you want to check basically you can check this basically which kind of people basically the Maharashtrian people basically are. Sorry, Mumbai city, because entire Maharashtra basically you can't take basically, because Mumbai is totally different and Maharashtrian is totally different basically. So here basically it's Mumbai city basically. And this everything is basically done. Now you can't do anything basically. So whatever Mumbai has done basically they have to suffer basically. They have to suffer basically. So one of the person told that And this basically real story basically. If you want basically the data basically of the particular that person also basically, you can get the data from the government hospital basically. They basically keeps each and every people data basically. If you are going to Bridge Candy Hospital now basically, their data also basically the government groups keeps. So you can just imagine basically, Bridge Candy Hospital basically person basically are crorepati basically. Their data also basically the government keeps. How basically? That is through power company basically. Power companies are connected with the each and every government hospital basically. So there, from there basically government hospital you can track that basically how many people got the HIV/AIDS and how many people basically was done Nasbandi basically in Maharashtra basically. Sorry, the entire Maharashtra you can't take. Mumbai city basically. And Mumbai city, that is Bombay Stock Exchange basically, where the 22 lakh crore basically is dumped basically. So you can't take entire Maharashtra basically because Mumbai is totally different and Maharashtra is totally different basically. So one of the person told that, yeah, Mumbai basically it's so bad basically. Or basically somebody has created Mumbai as a bad basically. Or basically the Pakistani group basically came from the Pakistan and then basically they are basically creating the problem basically. That is also possible basically. Because lots of people says that the medical industry basically is handled by the Pakistani group basically of Mumbai basically. Few people says that basically in Mumbai basically lots of doctors basically comes in Mumbai basically from Pakistan basically. You can't basically imagine basically like this thing are also basically happening basically. So what is correct basically, what is wrong basically, that the government groups only basically might be knowing, and government not are basically, they are very intelligent basically, because in front of the government only basically that person basically got HIV/AIDS and his Nasbandi was done basically in front of the government. This was happened basically. So government basically are not fool basically, that they might have also basically planned something basically big. Let them basically do the HIV/AIDS and let them basically do the Nasbandi basically of that particular person basically. Later on basically we will see basically. That is बाद में देख लेंगे. Few people says that the Gujarati caste basically which data basically are created from the First World War, Second World War data basically, they are also basically involved in this basically. That is the Amin caste. They are also basically involved in this HIV/AIDS and Nasbandi of that particular person basically. Few people say that basically they are basically Chinese family basically. The people who basically died in the China-India war basically. After that the Hini Chini Bhai basically blood group created. That is that group basically. That is the Amin caste basically. They are also basically involved in this HIV/AIDS and Nasbandi basically of that particular person basically. People says basically that is correct or that I don't know basically, because they also basically was involved with that Maharashtrian people basically that are basically in Mumbai basically. Amin caste means Gujarati caste basically. They are basically created from that Indo-China war basically data. That is the human clone data basically. What is correct basically, that basically we can't say. So this is that India basically, where many people says basically the Amin caste also say, the Patel also stay, Parmar also stay, Verma also stay, Sharma also stay, Nair also stay, Iyer also stay basically. So this is that Gujarat basically where Amin caste group stays basically. This is that Gujarat basically. See basically, this is that Gujarat. See basically, this is that Gujarat basically, where Amin caste says. So one of the person told that the entire India is created like this only basically, you can say. Entire India basically is created like this only. Few people says that the Nair caste basically which is created, that is basically from one of the president basically was died basically in USA basically, and that USA basically was president basically was created as a human clone, and then basically that caste was created.